and welcome back to the garage with Bonesaw. Today we've got another Tier 6 German medium for you, the Vk3001H. Much like its brothers, the Vk3601H and the Vk3001P, this tank was also developed in the late 1930s for the German requirement for a heavy breakthrough tank. This is one of the Henschel designs, hence the H notification at the end, and it was developed concurrently with the Vk3601H. This tank was pretty lightly armoured. I mean, at the end of the 1930s, 50mm of armour was actually decent armour. I mean, like heavily armoured tanks of the period had about 60 to 70mm of armour, so that was, you know, pretty good for the late 1930s. But when the actual requirement for a heavy breakthrough tank really became apparent, 1941, 1942 in Russia, 50mm of armour was no longer adequate, and this tank was dropped along with all the other VK30 series tanks were generally dropped, although the 3601H was evolved into the VK45, which would become the Tiger, the Henschel Tiger. This tank in real life didn't actually have this turret, the Gross term turret. That's a Panther turret that they essentially put on the tank in game just to give it a secondary turret. The normal turret, the standard term, is what it was fitted with in real life, and it was fitted with a 75mm gun. So this is what it looked like, you know, when they were proposing the prototype. But yeah, what do you get when you buy this tank in game? Well, as I said, you don't really have much armor. You have 50mm of frontal armor, 50mm of rear armor, which is interesting, 30mm of side armor. Not very good overall. The turret is exactly the same on the first turret. The turret rotation is pretty good, 40 degrees traverse, but you can only mount two guns on the first turret. The L43 and L48 from the Panzer IV or Panzer 3-on-4. This tank does research from the Panzer 3-on-4. You can also mount the 105mm. 105mm would be way too big. Yeah, the 105mm derp gun, which you'll see now. These guns at Tier 6 aren't really adequate anymore, and while this tank is fast, it does lose a bit of speed on the turns, so you would be mistaken in thinking it's a brawler. When you upgrade the turret to the Gross term, you can mount either the L70 75mm gun or the L56 88mm gun. My preference is for the 88mm L56, but the 75mm L70 is just as good a gun. Now the Gross term turret has a much lower traverse speed. It's only about 25 degrees, and this means that this tank really isn't very good for that kind of circling, close-up brawling tactic, because you can't. The turret turns slower than your tank does, and it's really hard to keep your gun trained on your opponent. I personally don't believe it's a very good tactic anyway, simply because this tank is so poorly armoured. It's better to stay at range, because at range they have a better chance of hitting the Gross term turret, which has much better armour. It has 120mm frontal armour, 60mm side and 60mm rear, but it's very bouncy, very sloped. Got a very large gun mantlet, which is very hard to penetrate. And more importantly, when you stay at range, you can make better use of the German tech tree trait of more accurate guns. Granted, the L56 isn't amazing for long range work, but it's adequate and it does enough damage and has enough penetration for this tier. In terms of weak points, there's not really much point talking about them on this tank. You have 50mm of armor, everything will go through you, so expect most hits to do critical damage. Your transmission is frontally mounted like in most German tanks, so any shot through there will likely damage your engine. Importantly though, is this tank is actually more survivable than you would think. I mean, I know I've been going on about the armor and saying that it's not very well armored. That's true. Any hits you do take generally will do damage. Any hits from the front, that is. If we look at the tank from the side, look at how much of the side plate is taken up by suspension. All of that takes up your side plate. The only real bit of side plate that's actually available for shooting at is just along there. It's a very little strip. And as you'll see in the replays, there are a couple of times where the suspension saves my life. I get shot at by a T-34, and instead of taking 400 plus damage, I take a total of 1 damaged track. And that's why this tank, you don't see many of them. People seem to shy away from it and think that because it's on paper, it's not particularly good. It's not going to actually perform well, and it's a surprising paradox. It doesn't look good on paper, but when you actually take it out onto the battlefield, it performs well and above what you think it would. Granted, there are times when you just die horribly in this thing. You lose a track and get torn to pieces, but that happens in every tank. Realistically, this thing, just use the speed. It's very quick. It gets to 55 kilometers an hour very, very quickly. Use that to kind of get around on the flanks, get behind enemy lines, and just tear into people from behind with the 88mm gun. Generally, for modules and upgrades, I can't really recommend much. Take a repair kit or a first aid pack if you want to. I don't bother on this tank. I generally find a repair kit, if you've been tracked, you're probably going to die pretty quickly anyway. You've lost all your speed, so if you repair your tracks and start moving again, you'll probably still get shot to pieces anyway. Same for a first aid kit. Like, it's really not going to save you too much of a hassle. As for upgrades, I haven't got any on this tank, but enhanced suspension might be a good idea to increase your survivability. Also available would be potentially gun rammer for that 88mm gun, and perhaps binoculars for long-range combat. The gun laying drive isn't really needed. Coated optics, not really need that either. You generally don't have to scout in this tank. You can, if you're in a very high tier game, a very kind of tier 8 heavy game, but it's not recommended. Additional grouses can be alright. They do give you a bit of increased terrain crossing ability. Spole liner, don't bother. If you feel like paying for them, vents, but I wouldn't recommend it. You probably won't be staying on this tank very long. Overall, you learn a lot of good strategies on this tank that you will take to the Panther, which is the follow-on from the research tree of this tank. And overall, a surprisingly enjoyable tank to play, as you'll see in the replays. So here we are on an encounter battle on Himmelsdorp in the Vk3001H. As you can see, I was in a pretty good position to go the hill, but this tank, despite its durable turret, doesn't have the gun depression, so you don't really want to go up to the hill in cases like this, because you just get torn to pieces. You don't have the durability. So instead I'm going to head for the cap, because I've got the speed for that. As you can see, I'm accelerating quite well. I've already hit my maximum speed. And it maneuvers quite well as well, so you're gonna have no trouble getting into a good position to cover the cap quite early in the game. And that 88mm gun can really cause some problems. As you can see, we have a decent amount of heavies going to the hill. The enemy team has quite a large hill blob, so our current strategy is to hold them off on the hill and hopefully get an early cap in. We did have some concerns early on that people were going to just rush the hill, but thankfully our team seemed pretty sensible, so they're not trying to push the hill too heavily. Taking a shot at the M5 Stewart here. Put a good hit into him, slightly above average damage roll there, which is good. A lot of people make the mistake in encounter battles of trying to win the hill fight. Winning the hill isn't absolutely essential. You just need to not lose. Alright. This railway carriage here is a very good, the flatbed railway carriage is a very good position for the 301H. It pretty much puts you hull down and means they can only really shoot at your very resilient turret, but we've scared off that 3001P and I'm moving up to help Vegaline. Alright, as you can see, aiming in on the 38NA here. He's dead. And now there's an M3 Lee. I feel bad for this Lee. That shot went high, probably hit him in the tumor turret. And the second shot will finish him off. As you can see, it's very much using the maneuverability and the power of this gun to outflank the enemy. One in the Matilda. And horrible shot by the 3-inch howitzer. As you probably heard me mention in other reviews, I'm really not a fan of the 3-inch howitzer on any British tank. It's really not a very good gun. 3001P is lurking around the corner. As you can see, we have two tanks flanking our hill push, but that's not an issue. So far we've managed to generally defeat them on the hill. Now I'm moving in to finish off this Matilda. Now the Matilda can penetrate my hull, but so can pretty much everything else. You only have 50mm of armor. Glancing hit on the Matilda's turret then. Dodging the 3-inch howitzer and finishing him off with a shot to the engine deck. And this is really where the speed of this tank again comes into play. It's all about getting behind the enemy and attacking from an unexpected quarter. You really don't want to get into protracted slugging matches with this thing because your armor really will not save you. See, that hit could have done a solid amount of damage to me there, but thankfully he hit the side of my turret, which has enough armor to deflect that shot. So that's 4 kills. Overall, a rather good game in the 3001H. There's one tank left, but we're just mainly moving up to finish the cap here. Secure the position. And can't get the last shot in on the T50 before we win. So yeah, this is a pretty normal tier 6 game in one of these things. It's a very, very good tank for this style of play. Here we are on an assault game on Karelia. I really like assault on this map now. Since they've moved the attacking team's spawn points, it's really become a well-balanced assault game, and very enjoyable. It's one of the few assault maps I actually do enjoy. I think they've absolutely ruined Sand River and, to a lesser extent, Malinovka. Malinovka is still playable, it's just people haven't quite yet learned how to play it now that they've moved the cap. But Sand River is completely and utterly useless in assault mode now. The attacking team has a huge advantage with that ridge line. So I think Wargaming still need to put some work in on that one. But anyway, moving on ahead as one of the scouts for the team. This is pretty heavy matching for the 3001H. It normally doesn't see quite this bad matching, but it can happen. And in games like this, you really do need to play quite carefully, because that 50mm of armor will just... nothing cannot penetrate me here. Everything I'm fighting against here will just tear holes into me. And so you really need to play carefully, use that speed, and act judiciously to help your team out. So I'm really not too keen on moving forward here, just waiting for some of the heavies to pull in and back us up. Overall, this is a really well played game. My team were quite competent, they knew what they were doing. That Chinese scout tank is doing a very good job of lighting up the enemy and killing off enemy scouts. Our Ferdinand's already gotten a kill. As you can see, the gun depression on this tank is quite lacking. I really can't get over this hillock to get a shot at the medium over there. Alright, now down below us is a T-34 and I believe a KV, no, an IS. So I'm coming down with this light tank to outflank them. This is really how mediums should play in games like this. If you've got a choke point occupied by 2 heavies, the medium should really come around. Now, as you see, I take a hit there, from a very big gun, but this is what this tank does. The tracks just absorb rounds. My tracks save me from a lot of damage there as well. And here I'm able to put another round into the coupler of that IS. Turn around. My tracks eat another round, and the IS is dead, and I get to finish off the T-34. Alrighty, just hunting down this Hummel. One less artillery piece to deal with. Once again, in games like this, you really don't want to be quite on the forefront, because if I'd just driven down into that, I probably would have gotten shot to pieces. So it's once again being judiciously and acting in a manner that benefits your team, outflanking, blowing off tracks, that sort of thing. So I don't really have a shot on any of these mediums. So instead, I'm going to move on down and see if I can do some more flanking work. As you can see, even with 2 broken tracks, this tank handles quite well, just having a brief lag spike there. And complimenting my team on the teamwork. Alright, they've still got some pretty big stuff left. They've got 2 King Tigers and a KV-5. And they're lurking around up in A1 sector, around about there. So I'm being careful because King Tiger can cause me to have a really bad day if he deigns to pay attention to me. The 88mm L56 is a really good gun on the Tier 6 mediums when they're facing other Tier 6 tanks. It's completely and utterly adequate at Tier 6. However, at Tier 7 and Tier 8, it becomes absolutely useless. It's perfectly balanced for Tier 6, horrible at anything above it. You won't be, like, even with a straight up shot, very low chances of penetrating the lower glass on King Tiger or an IS-3, which are the places you want to be shooting in order to deal damage. So I'm just being very careful here, trying to outflank one of the Tiger 2s and the KV-5 up there. Little do I know that there is in fact another Tiger 2 round about F1, so that'll turn out rather interesting. And as you noted already, I've already killed 1 Tier 8. I've killed the T-34, which is pretty good. Normally it's not something you achieve on standard in this tank. Avoiding the KV-5 up there. I really do not want to get a slugging match with him either. As I said, this gun is good at Tier 6, but it struggles to penetrate even the weak points on a KV-5, even the R2D2 turret. But I've got a rear shot into this King Tiger, so I'll take that. Take a hit in return. And I'm on 11 hit points. I'm really not in good shape, but just got to get behind this rock. As you can see, hit to the lower glasses took out my transmission, so I'm glad I didn't lose my engine completely. And now, while the King Tiger is distracted, I will jump out to shark this kill with 1 more to the end plate. And that's earned me Lavasilos medal, which is for killing 2 tanks that are 2 tiers higher than you. So that was a very good game. This time we're on El Huluf in the Vk3001H, and it's an encounter battle. I really don't like encounter battle on El Huluf. I find it generally to be quite boring. It's essentially a normal battle on El Huluf, except half of it. You only get the half that occurs in the A and B sectors. You don't get any of the sniping that occurs in the lower H and G sectors. And generally, yeah, it just becomes a big boring slugging match up on the corner. But, you know, I've got to make the most of it. It's a pretty standard Tier 6 game. I'm coming up here to get into a just nice little shooting position behind these bushes. Vegaline is behind me and his T-150. He'll be rocking along over to the A1 and 2 sector. That's generally where the heavies go. And so I'm just sitting here to cover the cap. And at the moment we have spotted 1 medium and nothing else is happening. So pretty standard for a encounter battle on El Huluf. I will apologise in advance. This one is a pretty boring battle until later in the game. Just the nature of encounter battles on El Huluf. Alrighty, we've spotted a light tank up there. He is a Crusader, I believe. No, I believe that's a French AMX 1375. Alright, see, I tracked that T50, and now you can really see the problem with the gun depression on this tank. I just can't get a shot on him. And he's shooting me back, and he can penetrate me quite easily. That's one of the things about this tank. You really have to pay attention against everything, because even light tanks can slowly whittle you away. And I missed my second shot. As I said, the L56 is it's pretty good on the tier 6 mediums, but there are times when it's just horribly inconsistent. I'm very much looking forward to patch 8.6, where the accuracy increase will be coming in across the board for all guns, except for artillery. That is, artillery is staying the same, which is also something to be thankful for. This game would have played out very differently if the enemy team had artillery. Thankfully they didn't, so you know, it's pretty slow going at the moment. Oh, we've got a light tank who's revealed himself. I think I can put a shot into him. There we go. One into the side plate. That was a good hit. You know, it's always good to do damage wherever you can, especially to light tanks in this sort of game. Try and reduce their capacity to attack the cap. Let's try and take some harassing shots on that KV-1S. I don't really have much chance of actually hitting him, but it's important to know that someone else is going after him. And once again, virtually no chance of hitting that, but you know, every little bit helps. If I had hit him, I probably would have killed his commander, which is, you know, reduces his combat effectiveness. Yeah, once again, pretty standard El Haluf encounter battle. In matches like this, you really can't do much in this tank, simply because your armor is so thin. Good hit on the KV-1S there, but you don't want to be over on that corner, because you'll just take hit after hit after hit, and your 50mm of armor will not save you. Alright, AT2 is heading for the cap, and thankfully he's giving me his side plate, which I can penetrate. And that's probably damaged his track, but unfortunately didn't do any damage. And I won't be reloaded before he's in cover. I'll try and put another one into him. Fortunately, I hit the heavily armored bit. Fegeline's gotten his first kill, and I'll take a shot at this Electo. Good hit on that Electo. Low damage roll, but good hit. And I should finish him off with a second shot. He's been dealt with. Oh dear, we have a team killer on our team, it seems. Probably an accident. Try and get the AMX, but unfortunately I missed that shot as well. Thankfully he's tracked himself, so finish him off.
Enemy armor is destroyed.
Shot to the turret. Oh, big hit there, more than likely from the KV-1S. Actually, no, wait, it's an IS. Oh, it might have been the KV-1S. I thought it was the IS. Same gun. Only difference really is the armor on the hull of the tank. Alrighty. Put a shot into the 1S, take his track off. He can't see me at the moment, so I'll put another shot into him. As I said, every little bit of damage helps. And he knows I'm paying attention to him, so he's backing off. I missed the shot on the AMX. Once again, that gun depression really is letting me down. I'm struggling to maneuver into position to hit this AMX. I missed the next shot on the AMX. Alright, if you look to the J sector, we have two tank destroyers creeping up behind us. They become relevant later. At the moment, they're not so much of a problem, because we've pretty decisively got this corner. It is always important to pay attention to your map, and I had been paying attention to my map at this point in time, hence why you can see I'm backing out and going around to fend them off, but you really do have to use your better judgment as to how big of a threat they are. And we know what they are. They're an M10 Wolverine and a M18 Hellcat. The Hellcat's probably the biggest threat just because of how fast he is. And we are taking some significant losses on the hill, which is a problem. But moving into a position here just to cover the advance of the Hellcat. Alright, fire a shot and miss. The Hellcat's armor really, this gun will cut right through it. Hellcat has roughly 20 millimeters of armor all round, and oh dear, there's a Wolverine behind me. Now, I did not expect to get this shot. That was just a warning shot, trying to kind of chase him off. Take a hit there, but my track saves me some of the damage. Try and get into a hold down position where he can't penetrate my my turret. My gun's reloaded. I really can't afford to take another hit from this Wolverine. I'm on 186 health, and that's enough for him to kill me once again, because that 50 millimeters of hull armor is quite weak. If he shoots me in the turret, I should be fine, but unfortunately, always factor in that your opponent might actually be sensible. Thankfully, I'm able to outflank him. He wasn't expecting me to be this quick, and put one into his rear plate. And so that's me saving it for the team, and the Hellcat's dead, so that's the end of that game.